The battlefield was silent now. Smoke rose into the sky, black and heavy, like a shroud covering the stars. Burned metal, broken machines, and shattered weapons lay scattered everywhere. Among the ruins, one human soldier walked slowly, his boots crunching on the ash. His name was Kale. Kale's armor was damaged, his face streaked with dirt and blood. He should have left the battlefield hours ago, but something inside told him to stay. His people had lost the war here. The enemy had left. Nothing alive. Or so he thought. Then he heard it, a weak sound. A breath. Kale stopped. He turned his head, scanning the rubble. Between two fallen machines, half buried under twisted steel, he saw her a girl. She was small, her skin pale, her lips trembling, as if each breath might be her last. Blood stained her clothes. Her eyes flickered open for a moment, meeting his before closing again. Kale rushed forward. He pulled away the heavy metal pieces trapping her body. She was light in his arms, far. Too light, like life was already leaving her. And then he saw Dot next to her lay a sword. But not a sword of glory or legend. It was broken. The blade was snapped in half, its edges jagged. The hilt was cracked, covered in dirt and blood. To any other soldier, it was useless, just another piece of junk in a graveyard of lost battles. When Kale touched it, the sword pulsed faintly, like a dying heartbeat. He froze Dot. It was impossible. Metal did not breathe. Weapons did not bleed. But this broken blade felt alive in his hand. The girl stirred in his arms, her voice no louder than a whisper. "Don't. Let it go," she said. Kale looked down at her, confused. The sword? Her. Lips moved again, her eyes barely opening. Only the blade can awaken. And then she fell silent, slipping back into unconsciousness. Kale stood there, holding a dying girl in one arm and a broken sword in the other. He knew what his commanders would say. Leave them both. They are worthless. A broken blade cannot win a war, and a dying girl cannot survive it. But Kale was not like other men. He had seen too much death, too many people abandoned because they were weak or broken. And he had sworn to himself long ago that he would never leave anyone behind, Dot. So he made his choice. He strapped the broken sword to his back and lifted the girl in his arms. Dot, as he walked away from the battlefield, the ruins echoed in silence. But Kale felt something strange await, a presence. It was as if unseen eyes were watching, as if the broken blade had awakened the moment he touched it. The path back to his camp was long. The night was cold, and the stars above were sharp and distant. The girl's breathing was shallow. Several times he thought she would stop. Several times he feared the blade would shatter completely on his back. But he kept moving, step after step. When he finally reached the camp, other soldiers saw him. They laughed. "Carrying trash now, Kale?" one of them called. "A broken blade and a broken girl? You waste your strength. Should die by morning, and that sword is just scrap metal. Better throw them both away." Kale ignored them. He laid the girl down gently, covered her with his cloak, and placed the blade beside her. The soldiers shook their heads, muttering. But late that night, when the campfire burned low, Kale noticed something. The sword was glowing faintly again. Not bright, not blazing, but enough to shine on the girl's pale face. And when it glowed, her breathing grew stronger. Kale's eyes widened. Dot. It was no ordinary weapon. The girl and the blade were linked. One lived because of the other. He sat there in silence, his hand resting on the hilt of the broken sword, his eyes on the girl who had been given to him by fate. He whispered softly to himself, almost like a vow. "They gave me a broken blade. They gave me a dying girl. But I will not let them fade, not while I still breathe." The stars shone cold above, and the galaxy remained silent. But in that silence, something had begun. Something that would change. Everything Dot and Kale, tired and wounded, did not yet know. That destiny had just been placed in his hands. Asterisk, the night was long. Kale did not sleep. He sat beside the girl, watching her chest rise and fall in weak, uneven breaths. Every time her breath caught, fear struck his heart like a knife. He had carried her from the battlefield, but what if she died here in the camp? The broken sword lay beside her, its faint glow casting soft light across her face. Whenever the glow flickered, her breathing faltered. When the glow steadied, she seemed stronger. Kale could not explain it. He only knew one thing: if the blade died, so would she Dot at dawn. A cold wind swept through the camp. Soldiers moved about, repairing armor, eating what little food they had left. None of them cared about the girl. To them, she was just a stranger, another lost body among thousands. Kale, one soldier sneered, kicking the dirt near him. You waste time. She will die. That sword is dead too. You carry curses, not weapons. Kale ignored him. He pressed a piece of cloth against the girl's wounds. She stirred, her eyes half opening. Her voice was faint, but her words were clear. You should leave me. Kale leaned close. No, I don't leave people behind. Her lips trembled. In something like a smile. Then you are. Different from the rest. She coughed, her body shuddering with pain. Kale gave her water from his flask, but she only drank a little. Her strength was fading, and Kale knew it. Tell me your name, he said softly. She whispered, Arya. The name lingered in the air, fragile, but filled with something Kale could not describe. And then she spoke again, her eyes unfocused, as if she was seeing something far away. The blade must be reforged. Only then can I live. Kale looked at the broken sword. Reforged? This? It's nothing but shattered steel. Arya's eyes closed again, but her hand reached weakly toward the blade. The moment her fingers brushed the hilt, a pulse of light ran through it. For one heartbeat, Kale felt warmth radiate from the weapon, almost like human blood flowing through veins. Kale pulled the blade closer, staring at it. It was no ordinary weapon. That night, when the camp slept, Kale sat alone by the fire, holding the broken sword across his lap. His fingers traced the jagged edge. He felt scars within the metal, as though the weapon itself had suffered. And then he heard something, a whisper, not from the girl, not from the wind, from the blade itself. You are not ready, the voice murmured inside his mind. But you are chosen. Kale froze, gripping the hilt tighter. The sword was speaking no, not with words, but with feelings, thoughts pressed into his skull. He shook his head, his heart pounding. Weapons did not speak. Steel had no memory. And yet, deep inside, Kale knew this blade remembered battles, fought long before he was born. When he looked at Arya again, he understood. The girl and the sword were bound together by something ancient, something the galaxy had forgotten. This next morning, Arya was weaker. Her skin had grown cold, her breaths shallow. The glow of the sword had dimmed. Kale made his decision. He could not wait for her to die. He could not carry a half-broken weapon forever. He had to find a way to save them both. He spoke to her gently. Arya, you said the blade must be reforged. Where? Tell me. Her lips moved slowly, as if each word cost her a piece of life. Beneath the ruins, the old forge. Humans once built there. The fire still burns. Kale leaned closer. You mean there's a forge hidden under this land? She nodded weakly. Find it, or I will be gone. Kale looked at the broken blade again. Then at her fragile body. The camp was no place for her. The other soldiers didn't care. They mocked, they doubted, but they did not understand. Only Kale could carry this burden, Dot, so once again he lifted her in his arms. He strapped the broken blade across his back. Without a word to the others, he walked away from the camp into the wild lands where smoke still rose from the war. The soldiers laughed behind him. Let him chase ghosts. The forge is a myth. The girl is already dead. But Kale did not listen. He walked on, his boots striking against stone and ash. The world was broken, but somewhere beneath it, fire still burned. Hours passed. The sun set, and night fell heavy. Kale's body ached, but he did not stop. Arya's breath grew weaker, fainter, like a candle about to die. Finally, after endless searching, Kale found it. Half buried in the ground was a great stone door, carved, with symbols no alien would know, but Kale knew them. They were human marks, ancient but alive. The broken blade on his back glowed suddenly, brighter than it ever had before. Arya's eyes flickered open. She whispered one last word, "Forge." Kale placed her gently on the ground. He pressed his hands against the door. Slowly, it opened with a groaning sound, revealing stairs leading deep into the earth. Heat rushed out, warm and alive. Kale lifted Arya again and stepped inside. The forge awaited, and what he would create there would not only decide Arya's fate, it would decide the fate of humanity itself. Asterisk. The stone stairs were steep, carved deep into the earth. Kale carried Arya in his arms, her breath shallow, her skin pale as snow. On his back, the broken sword glowed faintly, casting light on the dark path. With every step, the air grew warmer. He could smell ash, fire, and something else, something old. It was like the walls themselves remembered what had been forged here long ago. Finally, the stairs opened into a vast chamber. Kale stopped. Stunned Dot before him stretched an underground hall bigger than any temple. Black stone walls rose high, carved with human markings and symbols of flames. At the center, a great forge still burned, its fire alive, though no hand had touched it for centuries. Molten light spilled across the chamber, painting everything. In red and gold, Kale whispered to himself, "This is human-made. No alien empire, no other species could have built this. It was from humanity's forgotten past, a relic of when his people had stood tall among the stars." He laid Arya gently on a stone platform beside the fire. Her breathing was weak, fading fast. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak. Only the fire of this forge can awaken the blade. Kale unstrapped the broken sword from his back. It pulsed in his hands, as if it could feel the fire calling to it. But then came the doubt. He was no smith. He was a soldier. What did he know of reforging blades? What if he failed? What if he destroyed the weapon and killed Arya at the same time? He looked at her again, her fragile body barely holding on. He remembered the battlefield, the way she had whispered those words. Only the blade can awaken. Kale clenched his jaw. He had no choice. He stepped to the forge. The heat was intense, almost unbearable. He placed the broken blade into the flames. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the fire roared higher, as if it had been waiting for this moment for centuries. Sparks burst into the air, and the ground shook. The sword glowed, not red like normal, metal, but white like a star. And then Kale felt it, the weapon's voice inside his head again. "You bleed, I awaken. You forge, I remember." Kale gritted his teeth. His hands were already burned from the heat, but he did not stop. He took the hammer that lay beside the forge, heavy and ancient, and struck the blade. Clang! The sound echoed, like thunder through the hall. Sparks flew, again, clang! The broken edges screamed as he hammered them together. His sweat fell into the fire. His blood dripped from his burned hands onto the glowing steel, and the blade drank it. With each strike, Cale felt something strange memories that were not his own. He saw flashes of old battles, of human warriors long gone, of ships burning across the stars. The blade remembered every fight it had ever been part of. Arya stirred on the platform. Her body shook as if she felt the strikes too. Her breath grew, stronger with every hammer's fall. Cale shouted through the pain, "You will not die, neither of you." Clang, clang, clang. The forge roared louder. The chamber trembled. The blade's pieces began to fuse, glowing brighter and brighter. Cale's arms ached, but he did not stop. He poured all his strength, all his fury, all his hope into the forging. At last, with one final strike, the broken sword became whole again. The fire around it calmed, and silence filled the forge. Cale stared at what lay before him. The sword was no longer broken. Its edge gleamed like liquid light, its hilt strong and unscarred. Strange human runes burned along the blade, alive with power. He lifted it slowly. It felt different, now lighter, yet stronger. It was not just steel. It was alive. Behind him, Arya gasped. Cale turned. Her eyes were open wide, glowing faintly, with the same light as the blade. Her skin no longer looked pale. Color had returned to her cheeks. She sat up slowly, her body trembling but alive. "You did it," she whispered. Cale looked at her, then at the sword in his hands. "No," he said softly. "We did it. You, me, and the forge." Arya's eyes filled with tears. "That weapon. It is no ordinary sword. It carries the memory of your people. It chose you, Cale." He stared at the glowing runes, feeling the hum of the blade in his bones. It had chosen him. A simple soldier. A man no one expected anything from. But Cale was no longer just a soldier. The forge fire dimmed, but the light of the blade remained. Arya stood, still weak but stronger than before, and touched his arm. "Cale," she said, her voice steady now. "The galaxy will come for us. They fear what this blade means. They will never allow it to exist." Cale looked up at the firelit chamber, then at Arya. His grip on the sword tightened, then let them come. The reforged blade gleamed like a star, and for the first time in centuries, the forge of humanity had awakened. The forge fire had gone silent, but the world above had not. Far across the battlefield ruins, strange signals spread through the stars, invisible waves, carried by machines hidden deep in the earth. When Cale reforged the blade, the fire's awakening had triggered something greater, a signal no one could hide, and the galaxy heard it. High above, orbiting ships stirred. Eyes of empires turned toward the broken world. Old enemies felt fear. Old rulers felt rage. Something long buried had returned. Down in the forge. Cale did not yet know. He only felt the sword grow heavier in his hand, as if preparing him for what was to come. Arya stood near the fire, her strength returning. The glow in her eyes was faint now, but it was real. She touched the blade's edge with trembling fingers and whispered, "They will come." The moment the forge lit, the galaxy saw us. They will not forgive this. Cale frowned. "Why?" "It's just a sword." Her eyes locked on his. "No, it is not just a sword. It is a key, a weapon, a memory of power humanity once had, and the empires feared that power." Cale tightened his grip, then let them fear again. But even as he spoke, the ground above shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. The air vibrated with distant thunder, not of storms, but of engines. Arya's face grew pale. "They are already here." Cale lifted her onto her feet. She was weak, but her spirit was unbroken. Together, they climbed the stone stairs back to the surface. When they emerged, the sky was burning. Ships hovered above the ruins, black and sharp, shaped like talons. Their engines roared, casting fire across the clouds. Kale counted dozens, maybe more. Soldiers poured onto the ground, alien soldiers in dark armor, their weapons humming with deadly light. One of them stepped forward, taller than the rest, his helmet shaped like a beast's skull. His voice boomed across the battlefield. "Human, you dare awaken the forge? Hand over the blade or burn with this world." Kale's jaw tightened. Around him, the other human soldiers who had once mocked him now stood in shock. They had never seen such a force land so fast. One soldier whispered, "What did you do, Kale?" Kale stepped forward, the reforged blade shining in his hand. He raised it high, and the runes along its edge glowed brighter than the alien weapons. Leader snarled, "So it is true. The blade lives again." Arya's voice rang out beside Kale, weak but defiant. "And with it, humanity lives again too." The alien soldiers raised their weapons. Energy crackled in the air. The storm was about to fall. Kale turned to his fellow humans. "You called this a curse. You mocked it. But now it's the only thing standing between us and death. Stand with me or die as cowards." Silence. For a moment, Kale thought they would abandon him. Then, one by one, the humans stepped forward, drawing their own weapons. Not perfect. Soldiers, not an army, but brothers and sisters who knew survival was the only choice. The alien leader raised his clawed hand. "Kill them all." The battle began. Blasts of energy tore through the ruins. Explosions ripped the ground apart. Human soldiers scattered, firing back with rifles, ducking behind stone walls. The air was filled with smoke, fire, and screams. Kale charged forward. The blade in his hand cut through alien weapons like they were glass. Each strike sent a burst of light across the battlefield. The runes on the sword flared brighter with every kill. Arya stayed behind the lines, her hands glowing. Faintly as she whispered words Kale did not understand. The reforged blade pulsed in rhythm with her voice, guiding Kale's strikes, protecting him when he should have fallen. The alien soldiers began to falter. They had expected easy prey. Instead, they faced something they thought was long dead. Human defiance. But then the leader stepped forward. He was huge, armored in black plates that glowed with red lines. His weapon was not a rifle, but a massive war staff, humming with power. He struck the ground, and the earth split open. Human soldiers fell back in terror. Kale stood his ground. The blade in his hand burned hotter than ever, but even he could feel the weight of this new enemy. The leader's voice was cold. "You are nothing, human. One blade cannot change the galaxy." Kale raised the sword, his eyes blazing. "Then you've already forgotten who we are." The leader roared and charged. Steel met energy. Sparks and fire lit the battlefield. Every strike shook the air like thunder. Kale's arms ached, but he did not break. He fought with the strength of more than just himself. He fought with the memory of his people, with Arya's faith, with the fire of the forge still burning in his blood. The battle raged, the storm rising higher. And above, more alien ships filled the sky, darkening the stars. The galaxy had come for the blade. But Kale had already made his choice. He would not give it up. Not for them, not for anyone. Asterisk. The night sky was no longer a sky. It was fire. Alien ships filled the heavens, blotting out the stars. Their engines screamed as beams of light rained down, turning the ruins into oceans of fire. The earth shook with every strike. Kale stood in the middle of it all, the reforged blade glowing in his hands. His armor was scorched, his body bruised, but his eyes were sharp and steady. Around him, human soldiers fought and fell. their courage the only thing holding the line. Arya's voice rose over the chaos. She stood on the broken walls, her hands glowing faintly as she whispered old words that made the blade pulse brighter. The Forge chose you, Kale, but it also chose this moment. The galaxy must remember what humans are. Kale looked up at the burning sky. Then let's remind them. The alien commander roared, his war staff clashing again with the glowing sword. Sparks flew, tearing craters into the ground with each strike. The two figures fought like giants, while armies clashed around them. But even Kale could feel the truth. There were too many enemies. Too many ships. Then something strange happened. As Kale swung the blade, the runes flared brighter than before. When the sword struck the alien staff, a shockwave exploded outward. The blast tore through dozens of soldiers, flinging them like leaves in a storm. The humans froze in awe. The aliens staggered in fear. Arya's eyes widened. The blade is no longer just steel. It is power itself. Kale gritted his teeth. The blade pulsed in his hand like a living heart. With every strike, it demanded more of him, his blood, his strength, his will. He could feel it digging deeper into his soul, but he had no choice. He raised the blade high, and light erupted from its edge, cutting through the air. The beam shot skyward, slicing through one of the alien ships above. The warship split in half, fire and debris raining down like stars falling to earth. The battlefield went silent for a breath. Then chaos exploded again. The alien commander shouted, "Kill him! Kill the human before the blade awakens further." Dozens of soldiers rushed at once, but Kale moved like fire itself. The blade's light guided his strikes, turning the tide. Every swing tore through armor, every thrust shattered weapons. The ground was littered with fallen enemies, but the cost was heavy. Kale's hands bled from holding the burning hilt. His vision blurred. His heart pounded faster than it should. He knew this weapon was not free. It was feeding on him as much as he was feeding on it. Still, he did not stop. Above, the alien fleet unleashed its fury. Bombardments rained down, crushing ruins, scattering human fighters. The sky thundered with destruction. Arya's voice cut through the fire. "Kale, the blade can do more. You must listen to it." He closed his eyes for a moment, even as enemies closed in. In his mind, he heard the weapon's voice again, clear and sharp. "You bleed, I awaken. You fight, I remember. But if you fall, I burn with you." Kale's eyes snapped open. He whispered to the blade, then burned the sky. He raised it high, both hands trembling with power. The runes blazed white-hot. The blade hummed, shaking the ground. And then it unleashed a storm. A wave of light burst outward, cutting across the battlefield, ripping through alien lines. The blast struck the sky, slamming into warships. One by one, enemy vessels exploded, falling like firebirds into the earth. The humans gasped in disbelief. They had never seen power like this. But Kale dropped to one knee, his body shaking. His breath came in ragged gasps. The sword had drained him nearly dry. Arya rushed to his side. "Kale, you can't push it too far. The blade wants your life as much as your strength." He forced himself up, gripping the sword tighter. His voice was rough but steady. "Then it will have to take both when the war is done. Until then, I'm not stopping." The alien commander stared at the burning wreckage of his fleet. His soldiers hesitated, fear crawling into their eyes. But the commander only tightened his grip on his war staff. "You are dangerous, human. But you will not win. The galaxy itself will rise against you. Even your blade cannot fight forever." Kale wiped the blood from his lips and lifted the sword once more. The glow lit the battlefield like a second sun. "Then let the galaxy come." He said, I'll carve our name into the stars." The humans, battered and bloodied, raised their weapons and shouted as one. The war had only just begun. Above, the sky was still filled with enemy ships. The storm was far from over. But for the first time in centuries, humanity was not broken. For the first time, they had hoped. The battlefield was quiet for a moment, but it was the kind of quiet that comes before a storm. Smoke covered the ruins. The bodies of the fallen human. An alien lay across broken stone. In the sky, dozens of enemy ships still hung like shadows, their weapons glowing as they prepared to strike again. Kale stood at the center of it all, his blade glowing faintly in his hand. He was bleeding. His armor cracked, his strength nearly gone. The sword had given him power beyond imagination, but it was also killing him. Every breath felt heavier. Every step cost him more. Arya stood close, her face pale but her spirit bright. "They won't stop, Kale. More fleets are coming. They will throw everything at you until you fall." Kale's eyes stayed fixed on the sky. "Then I'll fall standing." But Arya shook her head. "No, that's not what the blade was meant for. It wasn't reforged only to kill. It was reforged to awaken something greater." Her words sank into him. He remembered the whisper of the weapon, the promise it carried. "You bleed, I awaken. You fight, I remember." But what else could it awaken? The silence shattered as the alien commander rose from the smoke. His armor was scorched, his war staff cracked, but his hatred burned fiercer than ever. "You think one human can stand against an empire? You are a spark, Kale, and sparks always die in the storm." Kale raised the blade, though his arms trembled. The light burned brighter, answering his will. "Maybe, but sometimes a spark becomes fire." The alien commander roared and charged. Their weapons clashed once more, sending waves of force ripping through the battlefield. The ground split under their feet. The air itself seemed to scream. But this time, Kale did not fight only with strength. He let the blade's power flow fully into him, though it tore at his soul. The runes blazed, brighter than the sun. Every strike shook the sky. Arya shouted from the ruins, "Kale, don't give it everything, it will take you with it." He smiled faintly through the blood on his lips. "Then let it." With one final roar, Kale struck. The blade tore through the alien commander's staff, shattering it into shards of light. The second strike pierced through the commander's chest. A shockwave blasted outward, hurling soldiers to the ground. The enemy leader fell, his armor burning. For the first time, silence fell over the alien army. Their master was gone, but the sword did not stop. It burned hotter, brighter, shrinking. Kale's life with every heartbeat. His vision blurred, and he felt himself fading. Arya rushed forward, grabbing his arm. "Kale, stop. You've won, don't let it take you." The sword whispered in his mind, louder now. "One last gift. One last fire. Burn me, and burn them all." Kale looked at the sky. The fleet above was preparing to strike. Thousands of weapons glowed, ready to end everything. He knew what the sword offered, a final sacrifice. If he gave it his life, it would unleash a fire so great it could wipe the skies clean. But if he did, he would never rise again. Arya's hand clutched his. Her voice broke. "If you do this, you're gone. Humanity needs more than your death. It needs your life." Kale stared at her, then at the sword. His chest ached not from wounds, but from the weight of choice. Slowly, he lowered the blade. Its light dimmed, but it did not die. Instead, he drove it into the ground. The earth shook. The runes flared, not with fire, but with warmth. A pulse of light spread outward, touching every human soldier. Wounds closed, strength returned. Their eyes burned with new fire. The humans gasped, then shouted. They felt that the blade was no longer just Kale's. It belonged to all of them. Arya's voice rang clear. This is humanity's dawn. The humans charged together, their courage like a storm. Alien soldiers faltered, their fleets above hesitating. As the battle turned, Kale, weak but alive, watched as his people rose. Not because of him alone, but because he had given them back their fire. The alien fleets began to retreat, their commanders realizing the truth. Humanity had awakened, and nothing could put them back to sleep. When the last enemy ship fled into the dark sky, the battlefield fell quiet. Arya helped Kale to his feet. His body was broken, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. You didn't destroy yourself. You gave us a future. Kale smiled faintly. No, we forged it together. The sun broke through the smoke, painting the ruins in gold. For the first time in centuries, the dawn belonged to humanity. And far across the galaxy, every empire felt the same truth settle in their hearts. The humans were back, and they would never kneel again. Asterisk